I was proud.
Nashville, 1962. A song hits the airwaves so devastating, radio stations start getting phone calls asking them to stop. One of these records was cut days before its singer's plane went down. 10 songs, 10 broken hearts, and the real stories behind them are sadder than the songs themselves.
She had ruby red.
Number 10, Walk On By, Leroy Van Dyke, 1961. Picture a jukebox in a small Missouri honky-tonk, 1961. Someone drops a nickel in, and for the next 3 minutes the whole room goes quiet. That's Walk On By a singer named Leroy Van Dyke.
Just walk on by, wait on.
Not a superstar, not even really a full-time musician, just a man with a voice built for heartbreak. The song is simple. You spot your ex out with someone new. You don't cause a scene. You don't beg.
Strangers when we meet.
You just walk on by. But here's what most people missed. Van Dyke wasn't just a singer. He was also a professional livestock auctioneer, a man famous for keeping his composure under pressure in front of a crowd.
Let you go, so why pretend? Just walk on.
The same steady nerve that sold cattle, sold heartbreak. And it worked. Walk On By spent an extraordinary run at the top of Billboard's country chart, a record that stood for decades. A song about silent dignity became one of the longest reigning hits in country music history. But if you think swallowing your pride is hard, wait until you hear about the song that made history simply by being someone's very first record.
On by, wait on the corner.
Number 9, Once a Day, Connie Smith, 1964.
Big hit record for you right now. Connie?
A young woman from Ohio walks into a Nashville studio in 1964. She's never released a record in her life. This is take one. Her name is Connie Smith, and the song is Once a Day. Written for her by Bill Anderson, one of Nashville's most in-demand songwriters, after he caught her performing at a talent contest and couldn't stop thinking about her voice. The lyric is deceptively brutal. A woman insisting she only cries over her lost love once a day, every single day, all day long. It's heartbreak disguised as restraint. It became the first debut single by a female country artist to reach number 1 on Billboard's country chart.
Slowly lost her mind. She sat around.
And it stayed there for weeks, a record that held strong for decades afterward. One performance changed her entire life overnight. But our next heartbreak was born in a much smaller room, a hairdresser's apartment, waiting for a man who was never coming back. Number 8, Apartment Number 9, Tammy Wynette, 1966.
It's not enough me in the mix.
A small apartment, a woman by the window. She's memorized the sound of his car, and tonight, she doesn't hear it. This is Apartment Number 9.
I know you boys work with a lot of acts that come through here.
The very first single ever released by Tammy Wynette, years before the world knew her as the first lady of country music. At the time, Wynette wasn't a star. She was a hairdresser in Nashville, chasing a music career on the side, when she recorded a song written by Johnny Paycheck and Bobby Austin.
I don't know if any of you boys ever felt that way. Maybe it's
About a woman waiting alone in a rented room for a love that's already gone. It didn't top the charts, but it announced her arrival. Within 2 years, Wynette would be one of the most decorated voices in the genre.
Me in the mix.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but she's the singer.
delivering some of the most quietly devastating heartbreak songs country music has ever produced. And in a cruel twist, the song about a woman waiting alone would echo through Wynette's own life.
Beautiful.
Including her much-publicized marriage and divorce from George Jones, another name on this very list. Speaking of almost losing everything, our next entry is about the moment right before a mistake. The moment a man almost throws it all away.
In apartment number 9.
Number 7. Almost Persuaded. David Houston, 1966.
Met a girl.
A bar. A stranger leans in a little too close. And for one dangerous second, a married man forgets he's married. That's the setup of Almost Persuaded. David Houston's biggest hit, written by Billy Sherrill and Glenn Sutton. The genius of the song is in that one word, almost. It's not a cheating song, it's the song before the cheating song. The moment of temptation, frozen in place, before the narrator pulls himself back. It spent weeks at number 1 on Billboard's country chart and won a Grammy Award for Best Country and Western Vocal Performance. A song about restraint became one of the most rewarded records of the decade. Because it stops right before the mistake, every listener gets to decide for themselves what happens next. And that unfinished ending is exactly why it still hits so hard.
I found myself.
Some heartbreak songs are about temptation. Others are about a plea so desperate it turned one man's career into an empire.
And she whispered, I need.
Number 6. Make the World Go Away. Eddie Arnold, 1965. Strings swell. A man closes his eyes and begs for the whole world to just disappear. Make the World Go Away, recorded by Eddie Arnold, though he wasn't the first to try it.
Before the world took me astray.
Written by Hank Cochran, the song had already been recorded by Ray Price 2 years earlier, without much fanfare. It took Arnold's lush, string-laden arrangement, a sound Nashville producers were calling countrypolitan, to turn it into a phenomenon.
If you do, then forgive.
It shot to number 1 on the country chart and crossed into the pop top 10, helping define the smoother, more polished sound that would carry country music into a new era. The bitter irony?
And make the world go away.
A song begging to escape the spotlight became the biggest hit of Arnold's career, pulling him further into fame, not away from it. If songs like these mean something to you, if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, not forgotten in some dusty archive, hit subscribe to Retro Vibes. Every video we make is about keeping this music and the people who lived it alive for one more generation. Now, back to the countdown. Because our next song sounds like teenage heartbreak, but it was hiding something else entirely.
Go away.
Number 5. The End of the World. Skeeter Davis. A teenage girl stares up at the sky, stunned that the sun still rises, that birds still sing. How can the world keep turning like nothing happened? That's the ache at the center of Skeeter Davis's The End of the World, written by Arthur Kent and Sylvia D.
Why everything's the same.
Everyone assumed it was a simple teenage breakup song. But Sylvia D. reportedly wrote the lyric while grieving the death of her own father, reshaping raw personal loss into what sounds, on the surface, like lost teenage love.
I wake up in the morning and I wonder.
It became one of the biggest country crossover hits of the era, climbing into the pop top 5 while holding strong on the country chart. A song so universal, listeners projected their own grief onto it, without ever knowing whose grief inspired it in the first place.
It ended when you said goodbye.
Speaking of songs that hide their real meaning, our next artist built an entire career on insisting he was fine. He wasn't.
Hey, no, it's the end of the world.
Number 4. She Thinks I Still Care. George Jones, 1962.
Just because
A man checks her phone number one more time, drives down her street just to see, tells everyone he's completely over her. She Thinks I Still Care, the song that gave George Jones his first #1 hit, written by Dickie Lee and Steve Duffy.
thinks I still care.
The entire song is a list of small, damning tells, every single one proving the exact opposite of what the narrator claims. He's not fine. He's never been less fine. It became a signature record for one of country music's most respected vocalists, and one of the most covered heartbreak songs of the decade, recorded by dozens of artists in the years that followed. The title itself is the twist. The more he insists he doesn't care, the louder the song proves that he does. It's one of country music's earliest, sharpest studies in denial. But denial is nothing compared to a heartbreak with no villain at all. Just an impossible situation, and a war that never really ended for the people back home.
I had all the chicks to myself, but then
Number 3. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. Kenny Rogers and the First Edition, 1969.
somewhere
A man sits in a chair by the window. He can't stand up. He can't stop his wife from putting on her makeup and walking out the door without him. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town, written by Mel Tillis,
proud to go and do my patriotic chore.
recorded by Kenny Rogers and the First Edition. The narrator is a Vietnam-era veteran, paralyzed by wounds from the war, watching the woman he loves leave to find comfort with someone else, because he physically can no longer be the husband she needs. It reached #1 on the country chart,
And the wants and the needs of a woman your age, Ruby, I realize.
and became a top 10 pop hit, one of the most successful crossover singles of its year, and one of the earliest mainstream country songs to confront directly what war does to the people who come home from it.
I've heard them say until I'm not around.
There's no cheater here, no villain, just circumstance so cruel it breaks a marriage anyway. Which is exactly why veterans and their families still point to this song as one of the most honest ever written about coming home changed. Every heartbreak on this list is real. But our next one was written by a man nobody had heard of yet, for a woman whose voice would define an entire genre.
No, I've heard it slam 100 times before.
Number 2. Crazy, Patsy Cline, 1961. Last call. A woman alone at the bar, finally admitting out loud what everyone else already knew. She's the fool who kept coming back. Crazy, recorded by Patsy Cline. Written by a broke, largely unknown songwriter named Willie Nelson. Nelson had written it as more of a talking, half-spoken demo. Cline, still recovering from injuries after a serious car accident, struggled to sustain the melody the way producer Owen Bradley wanted. It reportedly took hours in the studio before they landed on the vulnerable, aching phrasing that made the record immortal. Crazy became one of the best-selling jukebox singles of all time and crossed deep into the pop charts, cementing Cline's legacy and launching Willie Nelson's career as a songwriter years before the world knew him as a performer. The song that best captured Patsy Cline's aching vulnerability was written by a man who wasn't even in the room the day she finally found it. And that brings us to the heartbreak that isn't just in the lyrics, but in everything that happened after the recording stopped.
Crazy, I'm
Number 1. I Fall to Pieces, Patsy Cline, 1961.
each time I see
A song about falling apart, one piece at a time. Every time you speak my name. That's the opening ache of I Fall to Pieces, written by Hank Cochran and Harlan Howard.
pretend we've never met. And
It became Patsy Cline's first #1 country hit, and her true breakthrough into the pop charts, wrapped in the lush strings and soft background harmonies of what Nashville was calling its new sound. It sat at #1 on the country chart, climbed into the pop top 20,
you want me to ask.
and established Cline as the most powerful female voice in country music. But here's the part that changes everything you just heard. Less than 2 years after this song made her a star, Patsy Cline died in a small plane crash in March of 1963. At just 30 years old, flying home from a benefit concert for a fellow musician's family. A song about a heart breaking into pieces became inseparable from a life that ended in pieces too. Far too soon, far too suddenly, for an artist who was only just getting started. Every song on this list told a truth the radio wasn't always ready for. Heartbreak without a happy ending. Grief with nowhere to hide. That's why they've survived 60 years. Not because they were sad, but because they were honest. Because sometimes, the only way through a broken heart is a song that already knows exactly how it feels.